Howdy all you delicious people, I'm here today to review Escape the Field. So immediately once I started watching the trailer of this movie, I was like, in the tall grass. In the tall grass, you! But it seems that in the tall grass, in the beginning of that movie, we had people that got like suckered or manipulated into the cornfield and then they couldn't leave. Kind of like the Jesse Eisenberg movie Vivarium, which isn't the exact same thing, but it's similar. And if you see that movie, you'll understand why. In this movie, it seems that these people were dropped within this cornfield to try to put these pieces of this puzzle together. And it seems that this movie is to rest really on one person, which is really just Sam, because everybody else is just kind of following someone within this group that eventually like meets together and is to realize that every single one of their item seems to somehow have importance, and each one of them have some little logo that they are to realize is to connect somehow. So I really didn't understand the visual image where we pull away at the very end of this film. And like really, I guess this movie just comes down to like, well, hey, just enjoy the ride of the film. Simply because like this is one of those where like you're kind of just expecting for no one to really get out of this. It's kind of one of those films where you're just expecting no one to win this one. Kind of like Cube, where Cube, it's like you just consistently keep going through all these cubes and these cube rooms to just open another door and open it, and just becomes just like a monotonous movie at some points, or just repetitive movie at some part of it. So with that said, this movie, like, it's okay. Like, it's just like if you can conveniently like spare like $6.99 plus tax to go on and watch this movie, like, then by all means. Like, I think that this is a decent film, but I'll also give you a recommendation besides going on and spending that $6.99. I'll go on and give you a certain number of apps that I can hope that you can find, so that way you can go on and just watch this movie for absolutely free. So, with that said, go on to a Google search and search the word letter C movies. So that'd be like one of these, and then movies, an app. Hopefully you'll be able to find this app, download it, and be able to see a number of things for free. Or you can just go onto a Google Play Store search and search the word movie apps, because every once in a while you'll find a bootleg one that you can see everything, and it's kind of a broken app, and you can just watch all kinds of stuff absolutely free. Or you can also go on to a Google search and search the word Fox HD Movies, and hopefully, regardless of what I say next, you just kind of search for those words, because the logo will say Fox HD Movies, but the title will say something different. It'll say Play 1080p HD Movies. Hopefully, with powers combined of both those apps together, you'll miraculously be able to see almost everything. It's very rare that you dare say will not be able to watch anything unless you have this thing called money in your hands. Then, by golly, just spend that money if that's really what you want to do. Like, I'm not going to go on and tell you how to empty out your wallet, but do whatever you want. But I can also recommend another app on the Google Play Store called, like, I would say search for the word TV Crush, but you'll find something else. But just believe me. So, you search the word TV Crush, it's 2 words, and you'll find an app that has a logo where it has HD movies with a king crown off the side. Download that app and be able to go on and watch a number of things. Not quite sure it'll be Escape the Field, but it'll be a number of movies that you can dare say that you can see consistently for free. So now that I've gotten that all out of the way, I've said all that stuff, all that rigmarole, I think it's about time to just go into spoilers about this movie. It's a real simple film, but more than likely when I probably go into spoilers about it, it may not feel simple at all. And hopefully I'll remember to be able to, like, remind myself of all of this stuff that happens into all of this film, because there's a lot of moving parts. So, with that said, let's go into parting our way into that double five time territory, because I think it's just spoiler time, because I think it is spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about the time we can do spoil. Little delay on that trigger in the beginning, but oh well, we got to it. So, spoilers. So, we of course have Sam, who seems to be out of this whole entire group. It seems that Sam is to be the one that they kind of focus on mostly, or it seems that Sam is just smarter than everyone else, even though it seems that a number of people are to have their own kind of like, well, I work for the Pentagon and I know a lot about like intelligent stuff, but heaven forbid a number of these people end up living XYZ length of time through most of this movie. Even though they seem intelligent, doesn't mean that they will continue to live intelligently. So, Sam is to wake up in this field and is to have a gun with 2 bullets, it seems. So, Sam is to put bullets into this gun, and Tyler, who is played by Theo, who a lot of people probably know as the guy from this picture over here. But, like, I had seen him in Luke Cage, so I was like, hey, like, cool, like, people continuing to get work. It's great. So, Tyler is to make his way to Sam, and Sam is immediately thinking that Tyler was to be the guy that brought her here. And isn't that always, like... Isn't that always the story with this kind of stuff? Where immediately, like, the first person you see, I'm accusing that person of bringing me here. And, like, they always still have that paranoia or suspicion, as if it's kind of like Clue, that they have to kind of just figure out, who is the one who brought me here? I need to know. It doesn't matter. So... Sam is talking to Tyler, and so Tyler is mentioning to Sam, it's like, well, hey, like, if I was the one who was to have brought you here, why would I give you a gun? Does that sound reasonable? Like, that, like, you can kind of write me off as a man that it was to not bring you here? So Sam's like, yeah, I think so. Paraphrasing, of course, throughout most of this review, because I'm sure that'll happen. So Tyler and Sam just decide to just start to hop, skip, and jump through the cornfield that we find out at some part of this movie, like, most of the corn is, like, rotting and, like, useless for them to find, like, some kind of water or nourishment or just corn. So Tyler and Sam are making their way through this brush to all of a sudden find footsteps nearby. Someone is making sounds. So Sam and Tyler are just kind of like, we don't know what to do. Tyler is to go on and yell to said person, like, hey, like, is that you? Like, hey. So we come to meet a guy named Ryan as Tyler and Sam are to walk over to him. And so, since Tyler and Sam seem like good people, Ryan is to kind of bring his 2 people over to meet with Tyler and Sam. So, Tyler was to find out that Sam was to have, of course, this gun with these bullets. Tyler was to have this little container thing that had matches inside of it. And so when Sam and Tyler meet up with these three other people, they find out that Ryan is to have this lantern and Denise is to have this knife and Ethan is to have the compass. So at first they go on and they just follow the guy, Ethan, the guy with the compass. Because they're like, well, like, more than likely we'll probably just, like, go on and just keep going north and just hope that something happens here. So, but really what happens is Ethan is to, like, almost get to the point where, like, they're going in circles, like, following him, because there's a whole reason for that. Because every one of these items has this little thing symbolizing something. So we have this group going on, and eventually the more and more they start going through this this place, this forest, they go on and they bump into Cameron, who is to mention that she doesn't have an item. And Ryan's like, bullshit. I don't trust a person who's to not reveal to me what their item is. I don't know. There's something shady about this girl. And come to find out that this girl does have an item, as a lot of these characters are starting to get thirsty, Cameron is to kind of peel off, and Ryan is to find out that Cameron has this water canteen, and Ryan's like, hey, you've been holding that for the whole time? And Cameron's like, well, like, it was only half full, and now it's all empty, because Cameron, I'm sure, was to slurp down every single drop of that water. So Ryan bizarrely just hates Cameron for the lies of which that she has been holding onto this thing. But so now that they figure out that Cameron has this canteen, and that at some point Ethan is to just consistently, like, be putting them in odd directions, and they meet this scarecrow like thing, and they're kind of looking at the clothing that this scarecrow has, and it had this, like, weird pattern on it. So now that we've gotten to that point and covered all that, so now it's to start to get nightfall, and come to find out Denise is to have only a nightie on her, because random times which people were to have been abducted in this movie, because of course Sam was doing a 36-hour shift at her hospital, and it seems that when she was to try to go and get some sleep, she was to be taken from her hospital, and I guess nobody noticed. Denise, of course, was to try to spice up her love life with her hubby, and was to try and have this nightie. And so it seems when she was to try and wait up for her husband, she fell asleep and woke up here. So, like, it seems like that seemed to be the bulk of most of the stories for most of these people. So, and then, like, Ryan sometime later had, like, this military story that he goes on about after he is to kind of get a needle into his body that is to inject him with this kind of rage drug of sorts that is to kind of make his eyes go red, and, like, he's, like, grabbing people and choking them, and he's, like, lifting them, like, as if he's, like, absurdly muscular. But yeah, stuff happens, but I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's pull back a little bit. So we have this group who is all by this bonfire, and they're just kind of waiting things out. And so while we have Tyler and Sam kind of gushing about Denise's story about her nightie and her trying to get with her husband, and Sam is like, well, I'm sure like your husband would have really appreciated you going the extra mile. So all of a sudden, speaking of an extra mile, we seem to have an extra character who is to just be rattling off numbers 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so this guy with just this kind of businessman clothing is to have all the items of which that this other group is to have, and so he must be the very last guy from another group who could not figure out how to get out of there, but I guess miraculously was to be the only one who wasn't caught by this monsterish man who is to just grab people and kind of yank them out. And that is the same thing that happens with this businessman who, of course, has all these items. We have Ryan who is chasing after this guy, and we start to have just a number of people who start to get scared. Cameron starts running off, and she is to run off right into this fence because there is this kind of weird wooden fence they have to kind of hobble over. And Cameron smacks right into this fence and is to get a fence piece jabbed into her stomach. And so Denise is to find Cameron, and so then the group ends up finding Cameron, and we have Sam who is to have Cameron kind of breathe in and out, so like to just kind of check if this wound is to possibly be somehow in her lungs. So Sam pulls this thing out, and so they like bandage like Cameron up with just kind of cloth, and like that's all that they can really do. So Cameron now is to, at some points just kind of slow down a group as a wounded person would normally do. And so we have it where the group is to just kind of take 5, so that way like Cameron can get some rest, and it seems that a number of people have to go to the bathroom. So we have everybody still following Ethan's compass to the point of where they go around in a circle to meet right back to the scarecrow, and everyone just gets really ticked off at Ethan. So they're like, well, hey, wait a minute, like, you're not even going north anymore. You're just going, like, willy-nilly wherever. And I'm sorry if you're kind of hearing pitter-pattering. It's raining where I'm at. So my apologies. So Ethan is to go on and just say, like, well, hey, I'm just following where this thing is. Because I guess they don't trust that Ethan is, like, just going north. So, because one of the people point out, it's like, you're not even going north, you're going west, you're going this direction, you're going, like, it doesn't make sense. So, Sam is to decipher that the compass is to not try to figure out where north is. The compass is to figure out something else. So they're heading exactly where the compass was to just go in like complete circles, and they stop there. And so they figure out that the compass is used as a thing to find water with this little like knob thing that they kind of twist with the compass and turn on this water. And now they can fill up the cantina and drink water, and they're like, oh my god, this is great. So Sam realizes that there's multiple uses for all these items, and so it's like, okay, so we have to figure that out now. So people are going on into one direction. And we have Sam who's telling everybody that she thinks they need to go back to the tree that they saw once before because there's something about that tree that they saw. And everybody's like, I don't know. And so they take a vote on it, and it seems majority rules, so they go back to the tree. Come to find out, the tree is to have a map on it, because Ethan is to start pulling away at this bark to find this map. And so they're seeing this map, but they're like, well, there has to be another piece to this. And Ryan, who is to have this lantern, is to put this lantern on this little pole and adjust it. And they figure out that the map is to have some kind of like place where they can figure out how to completely get out of like this environment that they're in. So there's that. So when everyone is to go on and try to go to the bathroom, we have at one point where Denise is to get grabbed and nabbed and killed, and Sam is to go and like pick up her coat, realizing that Denise is now dead, and she bizarrely is now gone also. We have one point where it seems that there was a trap being set also for this either killer or the killer to kind of trap somebody into this hole. And at first, Ryan is to go on and protect Sam from falling in this hole, but it seems that Ryan, who is still ticked at Cameron, is to almost want to put her in this hole just for like consistently just being upset with her. And this is after Ryan is to go and see the Scarecrow, and the Scarecrow is to kind of jab him with this needle. Ryan doesn't tell anybody that had happened until finally Ryan is to go on his own and Sam is to follow him, and so Ryan is to talk about his time in the service, and then he explains to Sam about this needle, and Ryan is like, you know what, I'm feeling a little different, and so maybe you should just kind of go on and just kind of watch over me a little bit, just kind of like nudge me in the right way, so to speak. So, but really just what happens is Ryan is to kind of start to turn very caveman-ish, and it seems that his only thing to want to go on and do is find the guy who is starting to off people or kill people and kind of start predator, like putting mud all over his body to try to track this thing down and start to beat the crap out of it. So Ryan has basically turned into Arnold Schwarzenegger from Predator. Kill me now, I'm here. That's really just what happens. So these guys are to try to figure out this map, and as people are to slowly but surely get killed in this movie, also known as Tyler, who eventually is to get nabbed from the group, and Tyler seems to get some distance from this killer, but then the killer starts slicing into him, and like the group starts to get to Tyler, and Ryan is chasing after this man, coming to find out that it's like it seems to be a much more human man. So Ryan makes a mission to go after this guy, as the group is to now have to go on and figure out this puzzle, figure out this map. So Tyler and Sam are to be on their own, Cameron is to have stumbled into Ethan and accidentally stabbed him in the dark because she didn't know any better. And Cameron is just kind of very confused about what's going on. So she's thinking that she's going to just like be stuck here and just die. So she's in the fetal position. So Sam and Tyler are to go to one of these scarecrows, and Sam, bizarrely, is just thinking like, you know what, there's got to be something about these scarecrows now. Like everything has to have this like weird thing to it that we just have to figure it out. So Sam is noticing on the shirt of the scarecrow that this long sleeve like coat thing is to have a map on it. And she's like, oh my god, how did we not notice this before? And so Sam is realizing there's a map on this coat, and then she also realizes that she can use this kind of pull thing in the back of the scarecrow to open up the back of the scarecrow, to then open up this little door to then like press these little latches to twist the compass on the, so like it's a whole thing to just kind of push back this whole like corn section for them to realize like, okay, I guess we're just going through here now. So it's a lot of stuff that we just have to get through here. So we have Sam and we have Tyler, who are to figure out these little like maps and these little card things, and they combine them together to find out that there's certain traps located in the place that they're in. And when Tyler and Sam at some point try to go back, it seems that there's a thing preventing them from doing so. And so Sam and Tyler are to have to figure out which way to go, either left or right. And so the way that Tyler is to go is to get him to drop into this trap. And so Sam tries to save Tyler by trying to open up this door. And Sam saves Tyler, and so Sam and Tyler go the other direction. So come to find out, both of these characters go on to make it perfectly through this maze to find this like shipping container that normally you would see like on the back of semi trucks and stuff like that. They end up opening this storage container to just find this device that is to have all these kind of like these pulley things and switches and all this stuff. So Sam is to put this bullet in into one of these slots, and is to kind of hit all these buttons and pull this toggle, and it does nothing. But then Tyler is to realize that there's another set of this where maybe they have to kind of do it at the same time. But the problem is neither one of them have the knife. And so Sam has to go all the way back to wherever the heck the knife is, somewhere in this field somewhere. And I'm like, seriously? We have to have Sam go all the way back, and I'm feeling like Tyler is going to die at any minute here. So Sam goes all the way back to wherever the knife is, and so Sam just stumbles back into Ryan, who's now Predator Ryan, and so much like Predator, it's fairly similar. So Ryan is very barbarian, like he's like telling Sam, it's like shh, you have to be quiet and all this stuff. So So Sam is just kind of very baffled by Ryan, and Ryan is gearing up to find this guy and kill him. And so while Ryan is to try and fight this man who's coming at him, Sam stumbles onto Ethan, who has this knife on him. And Sam is thinking that Ethan is dead, but Ethan just kind of comes back and he's like, I'm still alive. So Sam takes the knife from Ethan and then just kind of leaves after that, realizing that there's not much that she can do for him. So Sam goes all the way back to where Tyler is and is to put the knife into that slot, and then Sam and Tyler to have to hit these toggles at the same time. Also, Ryan was to chase after the man, the monster guy, and he falls through this hole, and he is to fall into this trap, and we are to assume he is to kind of fall to his death here. So, when Sam and Tyler are to hit these toggles, we're thinking like, oh, this should be over, right? A door should just miraculously open, and they should all just be like happy ending, right? No, nothing happens. And so it's like, mother, so like, what, did they just like waste their time? Really? That's what it really was. Like, they had to go on and just try to find all this knife in all of this life wasted just to like, and I'm like, bah! I'm like, bah at this moment. Why? That's how just frustrated I was with this film. To just be like, wait, there's no real, like, seemingly legitimate ending? So, at this point, like, Tyler is like, you know what, I'm peacing out. I'm gonna freaking die soon. You gotta be kidding me. And so, Sam and Tyler are thinking that, like, Sam is just coming up with wild things to just try. So Sam decides that she's going to just burn the shipping container. And so the monster ends up just coming by. And so what Sam goes on and does after especially Tyler is to be killed off here, and he ends up getting like stabbed in the back of the neck. Sam is to go on and is to light up this man on fire after this man stabs into Sam. The man ends up getting lit on fire and is to be tossed into this storage container, and he's just kind of burning up in there. And I'm assuming what happens after this is that finally, after Sam is to kill that guy, puzzle was solved by doing that. And we have just a number of people in all these gas masks just come out and say, like, okay, guys, I guess that's a wrap. Like, I guess we're going to gear up for phase 2. So, so Escape the Field is an MCU builder. Okay. And so we just, after we show Sam and these gas mask people, it just kind of zooms out and gives us a visual that I don't really quite understand, but then the movie just ends. And I'm like, what? Plus, also, a lot of people will probably go through this review and be like, what the did you just say through most of this? What's going on? What were you even saying in this movie? Huh? So really, like, all of these people at some point get killed off. So everyone, I think, ends up getting killed off, and I'm assuming Sam does also. And so, like, with that, like, that was, like, the interesting part of this film. But, like, even when I probably didn't mention how exactly Cameron dies, but still, like, everybody ends up just getting killed off. And yeah, so like it was an interesting movie, and I completely forgot how Cameron died. Let me know in the comments below how Cameron died, because at that point, whoops, my cell phone battery, my bad. So yeah, so with that said, I think I've covered most of this movie, and so I feel good enough about it to just call it a day. Uh, yeah, but like normally when I go on and then I stop something and then I have 30 different things to rattle off. So yeah, so I feel good enough about it. So we'll see about that. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.